Right, here's a method for expanding brackets. In this case there's quadratic factors, so we should end up with a quadratic. There's a number of ways of doing this, but I'm going to show you my way. First of all, we write down the numbers in the first two brackets. So in this case the coefficient of x and the units, so the -1. Next we look at the number in the second brackets. If you notice, the second brackets, we're dealing at the moment with a monic factor. In other words, there's no number in front of the x, there's only one x. We'll deal with this situation first. So the number in the second brackets we use as our multiplier, so we go times 3 in this case. First of all, we times this number by 3 and put it down here, so we end up with 2 times 3 is 6. Then we multiply this number by 3, and -1 times 3 is -3. Now we add up the columns, which gives us 2 here, -1 plus 6 gives us 5 here, and in the final column -3. This gives us 2x squared plus 5x minus 3. Let's try that again. Another example. So first of all, write down the numbers in the first brackets, in this case 3 and 1. This time our multiplier is -2. -2 times 3 gives us -6. -2 times 1 gives us -2. Add up the columns. First column here gives us a 3x squared. Next column here, 1 minus 6 gives us -5x. And final column giving us -2. Okay, next we're going to deal with an example where both of the factors are non-monic. In other words, both of the factors now have a coefficient of x greater than 1. Let's take this example. So what we'll do here is we start off doing exactly the same thing. So 3 and 1. Our multiplier is -5. So -5 times 3 gives us -15. -5 times 1 gives us -5. However, we also need to deal with this number here. So in this case we use this to change our original numbers. So we go 2 times 3, cross it out, gives us 6, and 2 times 1 gives us 2. So we're doubling both the numbers. Now we can add up the columns to give us 6x squared, 2 minus 15 to give us -13x, and the final column -5. And let's do yet another example. So this time we'll do 3x minus 4 times 2x minus 3. So let's write down the first two numbers, 3 and -4. Our multiplier is -3. So timesing 3 by -3 we get -9, which we put in the next column. -4 times -3 gives us 12, and our second number is 2, so we multiply each of the first two numbers by 2, turning them into 6 and -8, giving us a total of, in the first column, 6x squared, second column -8 minus another 9 to give us -17x, and finally in the final column plus 12. In general, this method deals with virtually all the expansions you'll need to deal with in GCSE and some of the expansions in A-level. There are some limitations in that the factors have to be in polynomial order, so we need the 3x here and we need the units here, and in this case we need the coefficient of x here and the units here. However, what it's particularly useful for is, say I want to expand this quadratic factor and let's multiply it by a further linear factor. And we can apply exactly the same method. So writing down 6 minus 17 and 12, and this time our multiplier is minus 3. So minus 3 times 6 is minus 18. Minus 3 times 17 is minus 51. And minus 3 times 12 is minus 36. Totaling up the columns now gives us 6x cubed minus 35x squared, and next column giving us minus 39x, and finally minus 36. Let's look at another example of multiplying a quadratic factor by a linear factor to make a cubic. So we've got 3x squared plus 2x plus 1, and we want to multiply it by 2x minus 3. Let's have a go. So writing down the coefficients of the first polynomial, 3, 2 and 1, our multiplier is minus 3. So 3 times minus 3 is minus 9, which we put in the next column. Minus 3 times 2 is minus 6, which again goes in the next column. And minus 3 times 1 gives us minus 3. Now we also have this number here to deal with because we've got 2x rather than x. So we double each of these numbers, turning them into 6, into 4, and into 2 before totaling the columns. So the first column gives us 6x cubed, because we're expecting a cubic for multiplying a quadratic and a linear, minus 5x squared, and that's from 4 minus 9. Next column gives us 2 minus 6, so it gives us minus 4x, and finally minus 3.